The text message from my mother arrived on a Tuesday. Dinner at our place this Sunday. The whole family's coming. Your cousin Jessica just got engaged. Maybe you'll get some inspiration. I stared at those words, feeling that familiar sting even as I twisted the gold band on my ring finger, the one nobody in my family had ever seen. For 5 years, I'd kept my marriage a secret from everyone except my closest friends. Not out of shame, but because of a promise I'd made to myself after years of my mother's relentless matchmaking and thinly veiled disappointment. I was 35, successful in my career in Seattle's tech industry, and happily married to the love of my life. But to my traditional Italian-American family back in Boston, I was the spinster daughter who couldn't lock down a man. What they didn't know was that on a secluded beach in Maui 5 years ago, I had married the most incredible person, without a single family member present. As I booked my flight east, I decided this family dinner would be the last time my mother would ever pity me for being still single at 35. I just didn't realize how spectacularly it would all unfold. Growing up as the oldest daughter in the Moretti family meant carrying the weight of generations of expectations. My mother, Sophia, came from a long line of women who married young and built their identities around their husbands and children. She was beautiful, commanding, and the undisputed matriarch of our extended clan in North End, Boston's historic Italian neighborhood. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday gathering, every family milestone happened under her watchful eye and meticulous planning. "Angela, come help with the lasagna," she'd call when I was barely tall enough to see over the counter. While my younger sister Maria giggled and played with cousins, I was being groomed as the next family matriarch. "You need to learn these things for when you have your own family," she'd say, pinching my cheek before criticizing how I'd rolled the pasta dough. My father, a quiet accountant who deferred to my mother in all family matters, would occasionally wink at me from behind his newspaper when Mom's expectations became too much. But he never intervened. In our household, tradition wasn't just important, it was everything. When Maria got engaged at 23 to her college sweetheart, I was 28 and had just been promoted to senior product manager. At her engagement party, I still remember my mother's voice carrying across Aunt Rosalie's backyard. "Don't worry about Angela. She's too busy with her computers to find a husband. Some girls just bloom later." Everyone laughed, including me, outwardly, but something hardened inside me that day. The comments only intensified after Maria's lavish wedding at St. Leonard's Church, the same one where generations of Morettis had exchanged vows. At the reception, Mom paraded me in front of every single male cousin of the groom. "This is my other daughter, Angela. She lives in Seattle now. Very successful, very smart. Isn't she pretty when she actually puts on a dress?" By 30, family gatherings had become an exercise in emotional endurance. My accomplishments, buying my own home, leading major product launches, even the charity work I did teaching coding to underprivileged kids, were footnotes to the glaring failure of my singlehood. Then I met Jordan on a rainy Seattle afternoon at a local bookstore. We reached for the same dog-eared copy of East of Eden, laughed at the coincidence, and ended up talking for hours at the cafe next door. Jordan was brilliant, kind, and worked as a marine biologist. Most importantly, Jordan saw me, really saw me, not as someone's daughter or sister or potential wife, but as myself. Our relationship evolved quickly, but something in me resisted sharing it with my family. Each time I considered introducing Jordan to them, I'd remember another cutting remark from my mother or the pitying glances from aunts and uncles. So I kept our relationship separate from my family life, creating a boundary that felt sacred. When Jordan proposed after 2 years, it was on a small boat at sunset, surrounded by the waters of Puget Sound. "I know your family is complicated," Jordan said, "and I want you to know that however you want to handle this, I'm with you. This is about us, not them." That night, as we discussed wedding plans, I made a decision that surprised even me. I don't want a big traditional wedding, I said. I don't want to walk down an aisle while my mother critiques my dress and the guest list becomes a political nightmare. What if we just elope? Jordan's eyes lit up. Actually, I've been researching something. There's this little beach on Maui, completely private. My colleague got married there last year. It's supposed to be magical at sunrise. 2 months later, we stood barefoot on that beach, just us and an officiant, with the rising sun painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. My dress was simple, flowing in the gentle breeze. No family politics, no performance, just pure joy and love. We wrote our own vows, promising to always see each other, to create our own traditions, to define family on our terms. Afterward, we spent 2 perfect weeks exploring the island, taking pictures that never made it to social media, keeping our special moment sealed away from external judgment. Upon returning to Seattle, we bought a little bungalow near the water and settled into married life, wearing our rings at home and with friends, but slipping them off before family video calls or visits back east. It wasn't that we were ashamed. It was that I wanted to protect something precious from the inevitable ways my mother would diminish it. A beach wedding? No church? No family? Angela, how could you be so selfish? I could hear her words as clearly as if she'd already spoken them. So our marriage became our beautiful secret, and as years passed, the deception grew easier. When Mom called to bemoan my ticking biological clock or suggest meeting the nephew of a friend from her church group, I'd smile into the phone, my wedding ring catching the light while Jordan silently laughed in the background. But secrets have weight, and after 5 years, ours was getting heavier. When Jordan's parents passed away within months of each other last year, something shifted. "Life's too short," Jordan said one night. "I'm proud to be your spouse, and I'm tired of pretending I'm not when we're with your family." I knew Jordan was right. The charade had gone on long enough. I just needed the right moment to reveal the truth, preferably in a way that wouldn't allow my mother to rewrite the narrative. Little did I know that my cousin Jessica's engagement dinner would provide the perfect stage. The flight from Seattle to Boston gave me 6 hours to strategize. Jordan had wanted to come, but a critical research expedition kept my spouse anchored to the Pacific Northwest. "Maybe it's better this way," Jordan had said while driving me to the airport. "You can drop the bomb, weather the initial explosion, and then I'll fly out next weekend to help with the fallout." I'd packed my wedding album, a handcrafted leather book filled with our sunrise ceremony photos, and tucked my ring onto a chain around my neck. The plan was simple: wait for the right moment during the weekend, sit my parents down privately, and tell them the truth before the Sunday dinner. No drama, just honesty. But the Moretti family doesn't do anything simply. Mom picked me up at Logan Airport, immediately launching into a detailed account of Jessica's engagement, how perfect the proposal was, how beautiful the ring, how Jessica's fiancé Brad had asked Uncle Tony for permission first, like a proper gentleman. "You look tired, Angela," she said as we merged onto the expressway. "You work too hard. That Seattle air must be bad for your skin. You're getting little lines around your eyes." I touched the chain beneath my blouse, feeling the outline of my wedding ring. "I'm 35, Mom. Wrinkles happen." She clicked her tongue. "Well, we need to get you looking fresh for Sunday. Jessica's fiancé has a brother, you know, divorced but no kids, very successful in commercial real estate." "Mom, I'm not interested in being set up." "Who said anything about setting you up? I'm just mentioning it. You're so defensive lately. Must be that biological clock ticking." By the time we reached the 3-story brownstone where I'd grown up, I was already reconsidering my plan. Maybe a public revelation wasn't such a bad idea after all. Saturday morning brought a flurry of activity. Mom had scheduled a girls' day at her favorite salon. Me, her, Maria, Jessica, and Aunt Rosalie. As the stylist worked on my hair, the conversation inevitably turned to relationships. "So, Angela," Jessica started, her new diamond catching the light with every gesture, Mom tells me you're still flying solo. Don't you get lonely out there in Seattle all by yourself? I smiled tightly. I'm never lonely. I have a rich, full life. Aunt Rosalie patted my hand. Of course you do, honey. Career women always say that. But you know, my friend Gina's daughter was just like you. All career, no personal life. Then she hit 40 and froze her eggs in a panic. Cost her a fortune. Mom nodded sagely. Angela, I've been telling you for years to move back home. Seattle is so far. And what's there for you, really? Mom, I'm not interested in being set up. Who said anything about setting you up? I'm just mentioning it. You're so defensive lately. Must be that biological clock ticking. By the time we reached the 3-story brownstone where I'd grown up, I was already reconsidering my plan. Maybe a public revelation wasn't such a bad idea after all. Saturday morning brought a flurry of activity. Mom had scheduled a girls' day at her favorite salon. Me, her, Maria, Jessica, and Aunt Rosalie. As the stylist worked on my hair, the conversation inevitably turned to relationships. So, Angela, Jessica started, her new diamond catching the light with every gesture. Mom tells me you're still flying solo. Don't you get lonely out there in Seattle all by yourself? I smiled tightly. I'm never lonely. I have a rich, full life. Aunt Rosalie patted my hand. Of course you do, honey. Career women always say that. But you know, my friend Gina's daughter was just like you. All career, no personal life. Then she hit 40 and froze her eggs in a panic. Cost her a fortune. Mom nodded sagely. Angela, I've been telling you for years to move back home. Seattle is so far. And what's there for you, really? Just rain and computers. Actually, Seattle has one of the best marine biology research centers in the country, I said without thinking. Marine biology? Mom's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. What does that have to do with your computer work? I felt heat rising in my cheeks. Nothing, I just meant there's a lot more to Seattle than rain and tech. Maria, who had always been more perceptive than she let on, gave me a curious look. You've been really defending Seattle a lot lately. Is there something or someone keeping you there that you haven't told us about? All eyes turned to me. The moment stretched, and I nearly confessed right there under the salon dryers. But then Jessica's phone rang. Brad with some crisis about the dinner reservations they had that night, and the moment passed. Back at home, I tried calling Jordan, but the research vessel was in a communications blackout zone. Alone in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by high school trophies and faded posters, I took out my wedding album and traced the photos with my fingertips. The sunrise, the waves, Jordan's smile, the simplicity and perfection of that day. How had I let my mother's expectations keep me from claiming this happiness openly? Sunday arrived with pristine fall weather and mounting tension. I'd barely slept, rehearsing various versions of my revelation, none of which felt right. The house filled with delicious smells as Mom prepared her signature Sunday gravy, a process that had begun the day before. Dad was dispatched to pick up the special cannoli from Mike's Pastry, and Maria arrived early with her husband and their toddler twins. You look like you're about to face a firing squad, Maria whispered as she caught me staring out the kitchen window. What's going on with you? I nearly told her then. Maria had always been my ally, even when we were competing for Mom's approval. But Mom swept in with tasks for everyone, and the moment evaporated. By 4 o'clock, the house was at full capacity. Uncle Tony and Aunt Rosalie, their 3 children with spouses, Jessica and her fiancé Brad, Brad's parents, who lived in Providence but had been dying to meet the Moretti clan, Brad's recently divorced brother Mark, deliberately seated next to me, and various cousins, second cousins, and family friends. Dinner was served family style at the long cables Mom had set up throughout the first floor. I found myself wedged between Mark and my second cousin Teresa, with Mom positioned directly across from me, her eyes hawk-like in their attention to our interaction. Angela works in Seattle, Mom announced to Mark as she passed the bread. Very successful with computers, but she misses home, don't you, Angela? Before I could answer, Mark turned to me with practiced charm. Seattle's beautiful, but there's nothing like East Coast history. What brought you out west? A job offer I couldn't refuse, I said simply, acutely aware of my mother's scrutiny. Angela always was our ambitious one, Mom interjected, always putting career first. But there comes a time when other things should take priority. The table had quieted, attention shifting to our exchange. Jessica beamed from the head of the table, where she sat showcasing her ring, while Brad's parents nodded in apparent agreement with my mother's assessment. "What other priorities did you have in mind, Mom?" I asked, feeling a dangerous calm settling over me. "Family, of course," she said, gesturing around the table. "Connections, roots. Look at Maria, successful career and beautiful family. It's all about balance." Mark, sensing the tension, tried to lighten things. "Well, I'm sure Angela has plenty of time to figure all that out." "At 35? Mom laughed, the sound brittle. "Time isn't exactly on her side. I keep telling her, but she doesn't listen. Still single at 35, working all hours with those computers. Soon she'll be too set in her ways for anyone to put up with." The table erupted in uncomfortable laughter, and something inside me snapped. 5 years of secrecy, of protecting my mother's feelings at the expense of my own truth, collapsed under the weight of her dismissal. I reached for the chain around my neck. "Actually, Mom," I said, my voice cutting through the laughter like a knife, "I'm not single." The table fell silent. Mom's smile froze, calculating whether this was a joke or a bombshell. "What do you mean, not single? Are you dating someone?" Her voice was light, but her eyes narrowed. "Why haven't you mentioned this before?" With deliberate slowness, I pulled the chain from beneath my blouse. The gold wedding band caught the light as I unclasped the necklace, sliding the ring onto my finger where it belonged. "I'm married," I said simply. "I have been for 5 years." The silence that followed was absolute. Maria's mouth fell open. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Mark, the would-be setup, slid down slightly in his chair. "That's not funny, Angela," Mom finally said, her voice tight. "If this is your idea of a joke to get me to stop introducing you to nice men, it's not a joke." I reached into my bag beside the chair and pulled out the wedding album. Jordan and I got married on Maui 5 years ago. Sunrise ceremony on the beach. Just the two of us. I opened the album to the first page, where Jordan and I stood hand in hand against the pink gold horizon, waves lapping at our bare feet, pure joy radiating from our faces. "Who the hell is Jordan?" Uncle Tony broke the silence, leaning forward to peer at the photos. "My spouse," I answered simply, "a marine biologist. We met in Seattle 6 years ago." Mom hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. Her complexion had gone from olive to ashen. "You got married without telling us? Without your family? Without me?" The hurt in her voice was real, and for a moment, guilt threatened to overwhelm me. But I'd prepared for this. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I got married my way, on my terms, to the person I love, and it was perfect." "Perfect?" Mom's voice rose. "How could it be perfect? No church, no family, no proper celebration? Just you and this stranger we've never even met? How could you do this to us, to me?" "It wasn't about you, Mom. That's the point. My whole life, everything has been about meeting your expectations. The right career, but not too ambitious. The right clothes, but not too fashionable. The right man, but on your timeline. I needed something that was just mine." Jessica, perhaps feeling her engagement spotlight dimming, piped up. "But why keep it secret for 5 years? That seems extreme." I looked directly at my mother, because I knew exactly how Mom would react. Not "Congratulations, Angela," or "Are you happy?" but "How could you do this to me?" And look, I was right. Mom stood abruptly, her napkin falling to the floor. I have done everything for you. Everything. I raised you, supported you, even when you decided to move across the country. And this is how you repay me? With deception? With shame? I'm not ashamed of my marriage, I said, my voice gaining strength. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the life Jordan and I have built together. I'm only ashamed that I felt I needed to hide it because I was afraid of exactly this reaction. Do you have any idea, Mom continued as if I hadn't spoken, how this makes me look? My own daughter, sneaking off to get married like it's something dirty? What will people think? I don't care what people think, I said, and that's the difference between us, Mom. You've always cared more about appearances than reality. You'd rather I be miserable but following the script than happy on my own terms. The table was utterly still, witness to a confrontation decades in the making. Dad looked torn between intervening and disappearing into his chair. Maria was wide-eyed while her husband quietly removed their twins to another room. 5 years, Mom repeated, her voice hollow. 5 years of lies. Every phone call, every visit home. Did everyone know except us? Were we the laughingstock of your life, Angela? No one was laughing, Mom. Jordan wanted to tell you from the beginning. This was my decision, to protect something precious from being diminished. Diminished? She practically spat the word. Is that what you think of your family? That we would diminish your happiness? I gestured around the table. Look at tonight. Jessica gets engaged the traditional way and it's celebration and joy. I get married my way and it's, how could you do this to me? Even now, you're making my marriage about you. Brad's parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. Cousin Teresa was texting furiously under the table, no doubt broadcasting the drama to everyone not present. I didn't come here to hurt you, I continued, softening my tone. I came to finally tell the truth. Jordan and I are flying back east next weekend. We'd like you to meet properly. Oh, now you want us to meet? After 5 years of deception, we're suddenly good enough to be included? The final thread of my patience snapped. This is exactly why I didn't tell you. Nothing is ever enough for you. I have a successful career, but I'm not using it to find a husband. I found love, but not in the way you prescribed. I got married, but not in your church with your approval. Even now, when I'm trying to bridge this gap, you can only see how it affects you. I stood, gathering the wedding album and my bag. I love you, Mom. I've always wanted your approval, your pride. But I'm done diminishing my life to fit your expectations. Looking around the table, I addressed the room at large. I'm sorry about dinner. Congratulations, Jessica and Brad. I'm truly happy for you both. With that, I walked out of the dining room, through the foyer, and onto the porch. Behind me, I heard the explosion of voices, questions, exclamations, Mom's tearful accusations. As I descended the steps to the street, a voice called my name. Angela, wait. I turned to see my father hurrying after me, something I'd never witnessed in all my years of family conflict. Dad had always been the peacekeeper, the one who stayed out of confrontations. Dad? He reached me, slightly out of breath. Let me drive you to your hotel. I can call a car. Please, he said, his voice uncharacteristically firm. I want to. As we drove through the familiar streets of my childhood, Dad was quiet. Finally, at a stoplight, he spoke. Your mother will come around, you know. She loves you. I know she does, I said, watching the city lights blur outside the window. But love shouldn't come with so many conditions. Dad nodded slowly. You know, when I proposed to your mother, my parents didn't approve. She was too loud, too opinionated for their taste. We had a small wedding, just a justice of the peace. I turned to him in shock. What? But all those stories about your big Italian wedding? Came later, he finished. After you were born, we had a church ceremony to please the families. Your mother, she never wanted you girls to feel the disapproval she felt. In her mind, she's been protecting you from judgment. By judging me herself? The irony wasn't lost on me. Dad shrugged. People often become what they fear. He pulled up to my hotel. "This, Jordan? You're happy?" "Completely," I said without hesitation. He nodded, a small smile forming. "Then I look forward to meeting my son-in-law next weekend." "Daughter-in-law," I corrected gently. "Jordan is a woman." Dad's eyes widened slightly. Then he laughed, a genuine, surprised sound. "Well, that explains a few things." He leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Your mother's going to need a minute with that one." As I watched him drive away, I realized the night had unfolded nothing like I'd planned. But as the weight of secrecy lifted from my shoulders, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. I slept fitfully that night in my hotel room, phone buzzing with texts from family members. Maria sent a string of shocked face emojis, followed by, "OMG, call me." Cousin Jessica surprisingly wrote, "That was the most exciting engagement dinner ever. No one's talking about my ring anymore, so thanks for that. But seriously, your pics looked beautiful." Even Aunt Rosalie chimed in, "Your mother is devastated, but I want to see more wedding photos. She looked gorgeous. You both did." I ignored them all, sending only one text to Jordan, who had finally reached a communication zone. "The secret's out, all of it. Call when you can." At 3 a.m., my phone rang. Jordan's voice was a lifeline across the miles. "Tell me everything," she said, and I did. The salon, the dinner, my mother's reaction, my father's surprising revelation. "I wish I'd been there with you," Jordan said when I finished. "I'm so proud of you, Eng." "I couldn't have done it without knowing you were in my corner," I replied. "Dad wants to meet you next weekend." "And your mom?" I sighed. "That's going to take longer. I told them you're a woman, by the way." Jordan's laugh echoed through the phone. "Well, that explains why you kept our marriage secret. Not the 5-year timeline, mind you, but the secrecy itself." "Mom's traditional, but she's not a bigot," I said defensively. "It's more that she had a very specific vision for my life, and married to a female marine biologist in Seattle, wasn't it?" "What are you going to do now?" Jordan asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "I can't undo 5 years of secrecy overnight. I can't make her understand why I felt I needed to protect our relationship from her judgment." "Maybe you don't have to make her understand everything at once. Maybe just start with small truths." Jordan's wisdom, as always, settled me. We talked until the sun began to rise, just like on our wedding day, and I finally fell asleep with a plan forming. I was awakened 3 hours later by a knock on my hotel room door. Bleary-eyed, I opened it to find Maria standing there, 2 coffee cups in hand and determination on her face. "You have some explaining to do," she said, pushing past me into the room. 5 years, Eng? And you didn't even tell me?" I accepted the coffee with a grateful nod. "It wasn't personal, Mar. I couldn't tell just you without putting you in the position of keeping secrets from Mom." She flopped onto the edge of the bed. "So Jordan is a woman?" "Yes. Is that why you kept it secret? Because you thought Mom would freak out about you being gay?" "I'm not gay. I'm bisexual. And no, that wasn't the main reason." I sat beside her. "It was more complicated than that. I needed something that was mine, that wasn't picked apart by the family or compared to your life or measured against Mom's yardstick." Maria was quiet for a moment. "I get that. More than you know." She hesitated. "You think it was easy being the good daughter who did everything right, who stayed close to home, married a nice Italian boy, had the twins right on schedule? The pressure just shifts. It doesn't go away." I'd never considered that Maria might feel trapped by her own compliance with expectations. It was a perspective shift I needed. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Mom cried all night. Dad's being weird and cryptic. Uncle Tony's making inappropriate lesbian jokes, and Aunt Rosalie is suddenly your biggest defender, saying she always knew you were different." Despite everything, I laughed. "Sounds about right for this family." "Jordan's really coming next weekend?" I nodded. "That's the plan. I want you all to meet her properly." Maria studied me. "You really love her, don't you?" "More than I knew was possible," I said honestly. She smiled, a genuine one that reached her eyes. "Then I can't wait to meet my sister-in-law, and I'll help with Mom. She'll come around." "I don't know, Mar. I said some pretty harsh things." "You said some true things," she corrected. "There's a difference." After Maria left, I spent the day wandering Boston, revisiting old haunts and thinking about the life I'd built away from here. By evening, I'd made a decision. I called my parents' house, half expecting Mom to hang up when she heard my voice. To my surprise, Dad answered. "She's not ready to talk," he said without preamble, "but I am. Come to breakfast tomorrow, just you and me." The next morning, I met Dad at our old favorite diner in the North End. He looked tired but resolute. "Your mother feels betrayed," he said after we ordered. "Not just by the secret marriage, but by the fact that you felt you couldn't tell us about Jordan at all. About who you really are." "I've always known who I am, Dad. That's the problem. Mom never saw me. She only saw who she wanted me to be." Dad nodded slowly. "There's truth to that. But Angela, you never gave her the chance to see the real you. You built walls and kept secrets instead of being honest about your feelings." His words stung because they were accurate. I had chosen deception over confrontation, comfort over truth. "I found this last night," Dad said, sliding a small box across the table. "Your mother doesn't know I have it." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny book. "You were 8, Dad explained. Your mother wanted to put you in beauty pageants like your cousins. You wanted to join the science club. It was the first big fight I remember between you two. You said she never listened to what you actually wanted." I remembered that fight, remembered crying in my room afterward. "I bought this for you then," Dad continued. "The book because you always had your nose in one. But I never gave it to you because your mother and I agreed you would try one pageant, and if you hated it, that would be the end. You did it without complaint, got second runner-up, and never mentioned the science club again." I blinked back unexpected tears. I thought it wasn't worth fighting for. "And that became your pattern with your mother. Outward compliance, inward resentment. Until Seattle, until Jordan. Then you found something, someone, worth fighting for, but you still avoided the actual fight." His insight was uncomfortable but clarifying. "So what do I do now, Dad?" "The fights happened. Now comes the harder part, the reconciliation. Not pretending the conflict never existed, but building something new from the broken pieces." He clasped my hand. "Your mother is stubborn and proud, just like you. But she loves you. Give her time." I fastened the bracelet around my wrist, a tangible reminder of a decades-old conflict and a father who saw more than I'd realized. "Jordan's flight gets in Friday evening," I said. "Will you come meet her, both of you?" Dad smiled sadly. "I'll be there. Your mother, I can't promise, but I'll try." The week passed in a blur of text exchanges with my extended family, long calls with Jordan, and silence from my mother. I extended my stay, moving from the hotel to Maria's guest room, where I helped with the twins and got to know my sister as an adult, separate from our childhood dynamic. Friday evening arrived with a crisp autumn chill. I stood at the arrival gate at Logan, heart pounding as passengers streamed through. And then, there she was, my wife, my Jordan, her dark curls pulled back, eyes searching until they found mine. We collided in an embrace that felt like coming home. "You ready for this?" she whispered against my hair. "With you, always." We turned to find Dad standing a few feet away, hands in his pockets, a tentative smile on his face. "Dad, this is Jordan. Jordan, my father, Frank Moretti." To my surprise, Dad pulled Jordan into a hug. "Welcome to the family, officially," he said, "though it sounds like you've been part of it for 5 years already." Jordan laughed, returning his embrace. Better late than never. "Mom?" I asked quietly as we separated. Dad's expression told me everything. "She's not ready. I'm sorry." I nodded, swallowing disappointment. It's okay. This is still progress. But as we collected Jordan's luggage and headed toward the exit, a familiar voice called my name. I turned to see my mother standing near the airport bookshop, looking smaller somehow, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. "Mom?" I approached cautiously, Jordan and Dad hanging back to give us space. "Maria showed me the rest of your wedding photos," she said without preamble, her voice tight with emotion. "You looked happy, truly happy." I am. She nodded, eyes darting to where Jordan stood. "I always pictured your wedding differently. A big church, white dress, me helping you get ready. I know, Mom. But it wasn't my wedding, was it? It was yours." She straightened her shoulders. "I'm still hurt, Angela. 5 years of lies doesn't disappear overnight. But I want to meet her. Your wife." I waved Jordan over, my heart in my throat as the two most important women in my life faced each other for the first time. "Mom, this is Jordan. Jordan, my mother, Sophia Moretti." Jordan extended her hand. "Mrs. Moretti, I've heard so much about you. Your daughter speaks very highly of your cooking. I've been trying to recreate your Sunday gravy for years without success." A ghost of a smile touched my mother's lips. "It's all in how you simmer the pork." She looked between us. "You'll both come to dinner tomorrow. I want to hear the real story of how you met, not the version Angela's been hiding all these years." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an opening, a crack in the wall I'd helped build between us. As we left the airport, the three of us in Dad's car with Mom following in hers, I touched the silver bracelet on my wrist and the wedding ring on my finger, symbols of conflicts resolved and those still in progress. The next evening's dinner was awkward but civil. Jordan charmed my father completely with her knowledge of fishing, his secret hobby, and navigated my mother's probing questions with grace. When Mom asked pointedly why they'd married in Hawaii rather than coming to Boston, Jordan surprised me with her answer. "Because Angela thought you would disapprove of me," she said honestly, and I couldn't bear to watch her torn between her family and our love, so I suggested Maui. It was selfish, perhaps, but I wanted at least our beginning to be untarnished by conflict. My mother was quiet for a long moment. "And now?" she finally asked. "Now I hope we can start again," Jordan replied. "Not from the beginning, that's impossible, but from here with truth between us." Later that night, as Jordan and I walked along the harbor, she asked, "Do you regret it? The secrecy, I mean." I considered the question carefully. I regret that it hurt them. I regret that I didn't trust them enough, or myself enough, to stand firm in my choices. But I don't regret protecting what we have. I don't regret a single day of our marriage. Jordan squeezed my hand. "Your mother invited us for Christmas, you know. She cornered me while you were helping your dad with the dessert." I stopped walking. "She did what?" "Said it was time I learned how to make proper strafoli. Called it my Italian wife initiation." Laughter bubbled up, unexpected and healing. "That sounds like Mom." "She's trying, Aang, in her way." And she was. The road to reconciliation would be long, with setbacks and disagreements ahead. But as Jordan and I stood by the water, the lights of Boston reflecting around us, I felt something shift and settle, a new foundation forming from the remnants of old expectations and fresh truths. 5 years of secrecy had ended in one explosive moment. But the revelation had opened a door to something I'd always wanted, but never quite believed possible, being fully seen and accepted, both by my family and by myself. Standing on our Seattle porch 6 months later, I watched Jordan hanging lights for the dinner party, our first time hosting my parents in our home. Mom and Dad arrive tomorrow, their first trip west to see the life we've built. The silver bracelet my father gave me jingles against my wrist as I reach up to help, my wedding ring catching the fading sunlight.
The journey from secrets to truth wasn't easy. There were tearful phone calls, uncomfortable family gatherings, and moments when reconciliation seemed impossible. But with each honest conversation, each boundary respectfully maintained, we've created something new, a relationship built on acceptance rather than expectations. My mother still occasionally slips, making comments about grandchildren or suggesting Seattle might not be forever. But now I can laugh and redirect without resentment, understanding that her love, though imperfectly expressed, is genuine. And Jordan has developed her own relationship with my parents, one that exists independent of me, sending Dad articles about marine conservation and exchanging recipes with Mom. The truth is, families are messy, love is complicated, and sometimes the path to authenticity requires detours through difficult terrain. But living your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it disrupts the narrative others have written for you, is the only way to build a life that truly belongs to you. I've learned that courage isn't just about grand gestures or dramatic revelations. Sometimes it's the quiet, daily choice to be yourself, to love openly, and to offer forgiveness, both to others and to yourself. So if you're hiding parts of yourself to keep the peace, if you're diminishing your joy to fit someone else's expectations, I hope my story reminds you that you deserve to be seen, all of you, without apology or explanation. Life is too short for secrets that weigh down your heart. Trust me, I know. If you found something in my story that resonated with you, please consider subscribing to this channel. I share new stories about family dynamics, self-discovery, and the messy journey to authenticity every week. And leave a comment below if you've ever had to choose between family expectations and your own truth. I read every single one. Until next time, this is Angela Moretti, no longer hiding, no longer apologizing, and finally, completely free.